If you're finding yourself a little bit confused with what's going on in the local real estate market, you're not alone. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about some of the real estate trends that I'm seeing out in the field, and we'll go over what's happening in the Fraser Valley, Langley, and Vancouver areas. I'm also going to talk a little bit about interest rates and where I think those are heading as well. Before I dive in, if you guys could hit that like and subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate that. And if you want to book a 30-minute call with me to talk about anything real estate, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. Sales in the Fraser Valley for all property types for this year so far have fallen 15.9% compared to this time last year. New listings for property types have fallen 10.4% compared to this time last year, which is definitely telling us that we are off to a slower start in 2026 compared to 2025, which, by the way, was the slowest market in terms of number of sales that we saw in over 2 decades. So if that's any indication on how the rest of 2026 is going to look, we can expect, and I can't believe it, but even a slower real estate market than we had in 2025. And the main reason for that is because the number of new listings and active listings is not on the rise, and the number of sales has dropped as well. To bring a little bit more light to this topic, I went ahead and I broke down the Fraser Valley real estate market by property type. So for year to date, detached homes, they're seeing 2,751 active listings on the market. And of those, 255 sold in the last month. So when we take active listings and divide them by the number of sales in the last given month, we come out with what's called months of inventory. And that's a great way to help us measure the health of the real estate market. Anything that falls within 1 to 3 months of inventory is a seller's market. 4 to 6 months is a balanced market, and anything 6+ months is considered to be a buyer's market, which means that market favors buyers. Detached homes, they're sitting at 10.8 months of inventory. That's a buyer's market. Townhomes, they're sitting at 6.3, which is just in the buyer's market category. And then condos are falling at 7.5 months of inventory, and that again is a buyer's market. Overall, there's 6,108 active listings on the market in the Fraser Valley, and of that, 737 have sold, and that brings us to 8.28 months of inventory. The whole market is a buyer's market right now, and that's for each asset class. Detached favor buyers the most, followed by condos, and then townhomes are coming in at 6.3 months. So those are the closest thing to a balanced market. There's still a lot of demand for townhomes because of affordability for families, right? So they're one step down from that detached property that might not quite be obtainable for most buyers in this type of a market, taking into consideration the economic trends that we're experiencing. Let's just compare that to 2025, which, by the way, was a very slow year, especially for the number of sales. So it was the slowest year we've had in over 2 decades. So detached year to date at this time last year in 2025, slightly more active listings, not by much, and a few more solds. Market conditions 10.2, so still quite a heavy buyer's market, but this year it's even increased more. Townhomes 5.1, so that was a true balanced market in between the 4 to 6 months. And then condos come in at 7.6 months of inventory, which is a buyer's market again. Total overall buyer's market at 7.69 months of inventory. So this year's actually gotten slower. And that's something that I definitely wasn't expecting. Right now, in my experience with looking at my listing and my team's listings, we're finding the smaller condos to be very challenging to move. And that's because a lot of first-time home buyers are having a tougher time getting into the market. Detached properties are also a challenge to sell, but I will say that it depends on the price point of those detached homes and whether or not they have suites. Because I'm finding around the 1.4 to lower range, if they have a suite, those homes, depending on the type of neighborhood, are moving quite quickly, actually. I have a few clients looking in Walnut Grove, which is a sub-neighborhood in Langley, and their budget's around 1.3. There's been nothing really hit in that price range, and when it does generate a lot of activity. So you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt, but I would agree that Detached and condos have been a struggle this year, and townhomes, while still moving a bit slower than we're used to in previous years, they are still moving. And again, that's because they're a great alternative for families that can't quite come up with potentially the down payment for a detached home, or maybe they're upsizing from a condo and they need that middle ground. So for that reason, they are still moving. To touch a little bit more on why sales have been a little more sluggish this year, I wanted to shine some light on what it costs to get into a property right now. So these are the benchmark prices for the Fraser Valley board. So detached homes are sitting at $1.37 million. And minimum down payment up for that would be $112,000, which obviously is a large number for someone to come up with if they're not already in the real estate market. The down payment structure in BC is 5% up to $500,000 and 10% they're due after up to $1.4999 million. Once you hit that $1.5 million mark, the minimum down payment jumps up to 20%. Townhomes benchmark price is $770,000. So the minimum down payment on that, you're looking at just over $50,000. And condos are coming in at $488,000. Minimum down payment on that is $24,000. And so looking at that detached down payment of, $112,000 for someone brand new into the market, that's going to be really challenging to save up for, unless of course you've been gifted money or gotten an inheritance. For a condo to come up with $24,000 is a little bit more obtainable, obviously. And so I always go back to climbing that property ladder where you get into the market when there's opportunity for buyers, which there is now. And then you can slowly start to climb up once you build equity up. Now, we haven't seen a lot of equity growth since the peak of the market. I mean, there's only so much lower we can go before people start jumping back into the market. And that brings me to my next topic of interest rates. So the Bank of Canada met on Wednesday, March 18th, and they held the overnight lending rate. So right now, the overnight lending rate sits at 2.25%, which brings the variable rates that you're getting right now up to about 4.25%. And fixed rates are sitting at just under 4%, depending on the term. So the length of time you're locking into that mortgage and also the amortization. So you can either get 25 years or 30 years. This is a source from CMHC. So they're a mortgage insurance company. This is the first time that they've seen developers within Canada building the same amount of purpose-built rentals as they are for resale, like end user homes. And that really struck with me because is the era of home ownership dying in Canada? Are people just totally not even going there anymore? Like, are first-time home buyers just saying, forget it, like I'm never going to obtain that, and just kind of, spending their money elsewhere on travel or maybe even other investments, but not real estate focused investments. Maybe they're in the stock market or crypto or whatever the case may be. And so that was definitely something that caught my attention. And maybe it is the new normal, especially when we're looking at Vancouver and Toronto. Those are very expensive provinces to live in BC. And for a lot of people that aren't in the market, I can see it being extremely overwhelming and daunting to be able to come up with not only the qualifications to get a mortgage for your first property, but also coming up with the down payment. Of course, there's some other hidden fees like lawyer fees, moving fees, mortgage insurance. If you are a first-time home buyer, there's some benefits like skipping property transfer tax or getting a little bit of a break on that depending on the purchase price. But overall, it is still very expensive to be able to save up for that, considering the cost of living. And this is coming from me, who is located in Langley, BC. One other thing that I've been seeing happening this year is the number of evaluations I've been going on has been high, like even higher compared to busier years in terms of number of sales, but they don't end up listing because the number that is realistic today won't get them to the property that they want to be in order to make them want to sell. So that brings me to my next point, is that we are, because of that, seeing a lot of subject to sale offers. So I have clients that are still looking, but they're, kind of in the mindset that unless I can get this home, I'm not moving because I'm okay here, but I want to know where I'm going. And I also don't want to remove subjects on that purchase until I know exactly what I'm netting on the sales side. And so I'm writing a lot of offers, but they're not really coming to fruition a lot of the time. And that's not really a trend that I've been used to seeing. And I've been selling real estate now for 11 years. So I've never seen so many subject to sales than I have now. And so I just thought that was interesting, and I wanted to share that with you guys as well. I'm curious to know what you guys are thinking is going to happen, because generally the springtime, which is what we're in now, we definitely see an increase in the number of sales and active listings that are coming to market. And this year that just doesn't seem to be the case, which is pretty surprising to me, because last year was so slow. I thought this year was going to be somewhat of a rebound year, especially considering the interest rates are holding right now, but it just hasn't been that way. And so I'm wondering what you guys are thinking is going to happen, or if you're a first-time home buyer or looking to upsize, downsize, whatever the case may be, what are your thoughts on what's going to happen for the remainder of the year? I hope you guys found this video helpful. And again, if you want to book a 30-minute call with me to talk about anything real estate, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below. And if you hit that subscribe button, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.